Hi everyone, in this demo, we are going to build an event-driven security remediation workflow for an S3 bucket. The idea is simple. If someone disables S3 block public access, we automatically detect the change and turn it back on. Now let's look into this diagram. On the left hand side, we can see we have our S3 bucket. First, we will create a bucket named 00-event-driven-security-demo. Initially, S3 block public access is enabled, so the bucket starts in a secure state. Now let's simulate a security misconfiguration. A user disables S3 block public access on this bucket, so the BPA setting changes from on to off. Now moving to the CloudTrail, when the user changes the bucket's block public access setting, S3 generates a PutBucketPublicAccessBlock API event. The API activity is recorded by AWS CloudTrail. We will create a trail called S3 Security Events Trail and enable management events to capture this activity. The CloudTrail event then reaches the EventBridge default event bus. EventBridge checks the event against the pattern defined in the rules of the default event bus. In the diagram, under default event bus, we can see we have two different rules. For rule 1, if we follow this arrow, we can see we have a rule. This is the actual event pattern we are using for our demo, and we will be calling this rule protect S3 bucket BPA. The rule matches PutBucketPublicAccessBlock API event from S3 bucket for our specific bucket. When an event matches, the EventBridge sends it to the rules configured target, in our case Lambda function. The same event is also evaluated by other rules on the event bus. Suppose the second rule doesn't match because the event doesn't satisfy its event pattern. In this case, EventBridge doesn't invoke its target. For our EventBridge, we will use Lambda as our target. So we will be creating a function called remediate S3 public access. For this Lambda function, we will create execution role called event-driven S3 remediation role with two different policies. First, we will use AWS managed policy called AWS Lambda basic execution role. It allows Lambda to write logs to CloudWatch logs. Second, we will add custom inline policy called enable S3 block public access. This allows Lambda to change the BPA configuration of our specific bucket. On the right hand side, we can see what enable S3 block public access policy looks like. This is the exact policy that we will be using in this Lambda role. This Lambda function enables S3 BPA if it is currently disabled. If BPA is already enabled, the function takes no action. Now that we understand the architecture, let's see the entire flow in action. Now that we are in the AWS console, let's open S3. In S3 Management Console, let's click Create Bucket button. Under bucket name, let's give this bucket a name. Now let's scroll to the bottom and click Create Bucket. Let's go to the Permissions tab. Under Permissions tab, we can see Block All Public Access has been enabled. Moving back to our Management Console, now let's open CloudTrail. From the left hand side menu bar, click Trails under the CloudTrail. From the top right, let's click Create Trail button. Let's give this trail a name. For storage location, let's select Create New S3 Bucket. For log file SSE-KMS encryption, let's uncheck this Enable. Under Additional Setting, for this demo, let's uncheck Log File Validation Enabled option. Scroll to the bottom and click Next. Under Events type, let's select Management Events and click Next. Now scroll to the bottom and click Create Trail. We can see our trail was created successfully. Now let's create a role for our Lambda function. So let's move back to our management console. Let's click IAM. From the left hand side under access management, click roles. From the top right, click create role button. Under trusted entity type, let's select AWS service, and under servicer use case drop down, let's select Lambda. From the bottom right, let's click next. Let's select AWS Lambda basic execution role. Scroll to the bottom and click next. Let's give this role a name. Scroll to the bottom and click create role. Now let's search and open our newly created role. Let's click our role named event-driven S3 remediation role. Now let's add custom inline policy. So under permissions, let's click this add permissions drop down and select create inline policy. In the policy editor, let's select JSON and let's paste our new JSON. Now let's scroll to the bottom and click next. Give this policy a name. Now let's click create policy. Now let's move back to our management console and let's open Lambda. In the Lambda console, let's click create a function button. Let's give this function a name. For runtime, let's select Node.js. Let's expand this additional settings. In the custom role execution role, let's select this. From the right hand side, let's click choose an existing role drop down and let's select our newly created role for our Lambda. Now let's click save. Now scroll to the bottom and click create function. Now let's look into the code tab. Let's click ignore for now. In index.mjs file, let's replace our default file with the new code. Let's click deploy. Now let's look at what our remediation Lambda function does. First, it receives the event from the EventBridge and extracts the bucket name and the BPA configuration from the event. Next, it checks whether all four S3 block public access settings are enabled. If all four settings are already enabled, the Lambda does nothing, so it returns. If any one of them is disabled, Lambda makes this call and enables all four settings. So essentially, the Lambda checks the BPA configuration and restores it to the secure state whenever necessary. Now let's move back to our management console again, and this time let's open Amazon EventBridge. From the left hand side under buses, let's select rules. From the right hand side, let's click create rule button. Let's give this rule a name. For event bus, we will select default. Now let's click next. Scrolling down under event pattern, let's click custom pattern. For the event pattern, let's paste our event pattern. Now scroll to the bottom and click next. Under target 1, we will select AWS service. Under select a target, let's select this drop down and select Lambda function. Under functions drop down, let's click this drop down and select our Lambda function called remediate S3 public access. Scroll to the bottom and click next. Click next again. Scroll to the bottom and click create rule. You can see we have created our rule called protect S3 bucket BPA. Now let's move back to our management console and open CloudWatch. From the left hand side under logs, let's click log management. Right now we don't have any logs, so let's try to trigger our remediation by disabling block public access in S3 bucket. Now let's move back to our S3 console. Currently we are under permissions and we can see we have enabled our block all public access. As we see, we have status of on. So let's click edit. Let's uncheck this block all public access and click save changes. Type confirm and click confirm button. And right now it is disabled, so it's off. So if we move back to our log group and let's refresh this page to see logs from our Lambda function. You can see we have a log group with remediate S3 public access under Lambda. So let's click this log group. Under log stream, let's open this log stream. Under logs, you can see that we get BPA is not fully enabled, starting remediation, and successfully enabled block public access. So if we move back to our S3 bucket and refresh this page, indeed we can see that Lambda did turn this block all public access to on. Now let's move back to our CloudWatch logs. You may notice two Lambda invocations in the CloudWatch logs. That's because the remediation itself makes another PutBucketPublicAccessBlock API call, which generates another CloudTrail event. That event can reach EventBridge again. However, when the Lambda receives the second event, BPA is fully enabled. As you can see from this console log that says BPA is already fully enabled, the Lambda detects that and takes no remediation action. So that's how we build an event-driven S3 security remediation workflow using CloudTrail, EventBridge, and Lambda. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and share it with others. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing to the channel for more AWS tutorials. And a big thank you to everyone who has already subscribed and supported the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.